Heyo, welcome everyone to episode 15 of Today in the Scene. I'm Joe with Indie Arcade Wave, and this is my co-host Dylan from Galactic Battleground.
Hey, yo, what's up?
Shout out to our sponsors Can Arcade, everything arcade, music, and cannabis. We put out these videos every Friday. This is going to be diving into the indie scene here. If you guys like what we're doing here at Indie Arcade Wave, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, make sure you get notified. Like I said, every Friday these videos will be coming out. Now, this week we have the pleasure of speaking to Mark and Stephanie, the owners of Wonderville Arcade Bar. How you guys doing today?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks.
We've really been wanting to talk to you guys for a while because I think you have one of the most exclusive spaces in the arcade scene for indies, and that is Wonderville. So tell me a little bit about what Wonderville is.
Yeah, so Wonderville is a bar, an arcade and event space located in Brooklyn, New York, and we exclusively showcase games made by independent developers. We also have a few kind of unique arcade interfaces. We try to kind of work with the local community and show games that are not only coming out of game developers in New York, but around the world that we think are cool.
Okay, how did you guys get started on Wonderville?
So we got a lot of dumb luck. Really good friends of ours were selling their bar, and they reached out to us. I think they knew that Mark and I, had been talking and toying with the idea of opening a space so that the games could no longer be vagabonds bouncing from location to location. They were a collection, and they were all, kind of just pop-ups. So we kind of realized that Wonderville needed a home, needed a long-term space. So by buying the bar, we already had a liquor license with the state of New York established. So most bars, when they open, they might be closed. To start, they might not open for a few months, and we were closed for 3 days.
We got in there, we threw all the arcades in there, we painted all the walls, and we opened immediately.
Wow.
And I should preface this by saying, like, for 5 years prior to Wonderville, I had been building arcade cabinets with Death by Audio Arcade, and so we had this collection of like 20 arcade cabinets that were pretty much homeless. We would put them in a box truck, we'd bring them to some music venue, some art gallery, anyone that had
startup office space.
Yeah, whoever had space.
Yeah.
We'd be like, don't you want arcade cabinets in your space? And we'd put them there for a month or two, and then we'd move them to the next place. So Wonderville was born kind of out of a necessity. The games would get beat up, being moved so much. Driving box trucks around New York isn't the most fun thing. So I was glad to kind of retire my trucking career and start the bar.
Yeah, driving in New York, period. I've never been there, but it looks and sounds like a nightmare.
It is a nightmare, dude.
Indeed.
It is.
So you guys said that you kind of just jumped right into it, but you had some prior experience with building cabinets, Mark. What was that, and how did you get into that?
So way back in 2010, I was living at Death by Audio, which was a music venue in a warehouse in Brooklyn. And back in like 10 years ago, there were a lot of these like kind of industrial spaces that artists would rent out and convert into living spaces and music venues and all of that. So there were a lot of them. And Death by Audio had this big living space in the back. So there were like 13 people who lived there. There was they built guitar pedals. There's Death by Audio guitar pedals that operated out of there. There were a bunch of artists and musicians. So it was a super inspiring creative space. And I decided to build a MAME cabinet out of material that was kind of lying around. We had this old eMac computer. I loaded up an emulator, and they had this music venue, and I asked if I could put it in the back and, put Street Fighter and Avengers on the emulators. And so from like 2010 to 2012, it was sort of this, like, I don't know, weird box MAME arcade. And then I met the guys that ran Baby Castles, which is another like video game arts organization in New York. And they were like, hey, this is cool, but don't you know that like people in New York make games and they're kind of crazy? And we did a pop-up together, and they installed a bunch of games that actually kind of ended up being the Sports Friends collection. We had Pole Riders, we had Hokra, we had I think half the games that were on that collection. And that was super cool. And then I started meeting people from the NYU Game Center, and we started just building cabinets for like students that had games, specifically arcade style games. And then it became like a scavenger hunt. I would start going to, the Museum of the Moving Image or the Parsons show and like find more games to build cabinets for. And it kind of just grew from there.
I should note, I was there. I helped build that meme came, and I did not know that this was going to be not a hobby.
Yeah, you never really know what it's going to be until the time passes. I mean,
Yeah.
you just kind of jump into it, and all of a sudden, like you said, you had 20 cabinets you didn't know what to do with.
Yeah.
So what is day-to-day operation at Wonderville like outside of what's going on right now? How do you guys kind of split up what needs to be done?
Yeah, so Stephanie, I work for the city, so I've been very lucky. Previous positions, I've learned a lot about the legalese of running a legal department of health-approved venue. So I really focus on that and some of the paperwork aspects. I'm not a game creator. I'm really good with spreadsheets. And so Mark is definitely more involved in the creative end and, planning our next event. Yeah,
so I guess I'll talk about what we did prior to COVID, and then I'll talk about what we do now. Before this, we were running events. We had a stage and sound system, so almost every night of the week we would have either a band or a DJ or a video game tournament that got projected. Like there was always something scheduled to bring people out to the arcade. And, I would work with our events coordinator, EE, to book those. And I would also do the maintenance on the arcades. Because as you can imagine, Killer Queen needs new buttons every couple months. Stuff gets spilled and has to get cleaned up. So that was a big aspect of it. And so day to day, we would have bartenders, we would have sound engineers, and all of the normal stuff of running a bar, right? Like cleaning stuff, making drinks, inventory, all of that. But on top of that, events, concerts, live sound, arcades. It was a whole operation. So now that we can't have people inside because New York still is not allowing bars to have people indoors. Yet. So the arcade has been closed. We spent the whole summer renovating our backyards. We could fit more tables back there. We could have people sit outside in the front and in the back. We actually wheeled our Black Emperor cabinet into the backyard so people could play one game.
With a box of gloves next to it.
And you know what? It's kind of been a time to focus on the bar, which is nice because there's always been so much happening that we didn't really think too much about our cocktails and like making the bar better. So
food and fun stuff.
Yeah, we're a restaurant now, according to Andrew Cuomo. Every bar is a restaurant. So we've been thinking of creative ways to have food, and we've created a bunch of new frozen drinks. So that's been fun. It's been like fun to worry about the bar aspect, I guess, for now.
Well, that's good to hear. I mean, along the lines of like being a bar and like having all these games, like what's the roster like there? Like, can you announce all the games that you have?
Okay. So I will start from probably the most well-known game. So we have a Killer Queen machine. We probably have one of the first Killer Queens that was built. It's a 5-on-5 game, super popular. We had actually planned to run a summer league this year, but our plans were foiled. We also
foiled.
Yeah, I was about to say you have a foiled too.
You have a foiled. We have the second foiled cabinet.
Well done.
Which is super exciting because that was a game that we showed back in 2011 at Death by Audio, and I'm so excited to have it with the new animation and everything. We have Black Emperor, crowd favorite. that is a one-player game where you just drive as far as you can until the road runs out. Let's see. I'm going to go through the games that are not part of the DBA arcade collection. We have a game called Icarus Proud Bottoms Typing Party, which is a 2-player competitive typing game made by Holy Wow Studios. And that was a cabinet I just found by looking through like Facebook events, and I was like, what is this cabinet? So I just DM'd the people, and they were like, oh yeah, it's in our living room. Do you want it?
Vec 9.
Vec 9 is incredible. There's one at Logan Arcade, and there's one at Wonderville. It's a vector display that was pulled from an Asteroids cabinet, and it uses an M1 tank controller. So it's a first-person, starfighter game where you are a Soviet bomber pilot attacking the United States.
Another game that was in a storage unit that we said, can we get it? And they said yes.
Yeah, that was made by a bunch of engineers that were working at Lockheed Martin at the time. So like, it's an engineering marvel. It's really beautiful.
It's also a great game when the bar reopens. If you win, and I've only been there a few times when somebody wins and the siren goes off, if one of us is there, we'll alert the winner to get a free shot.
It's hard not to notice the siren.
It's very loud.
A few days before COVID happened, we just got an Armed and Gelatinous cabinet. And we were so excited to have a launch party and do all this stuff around it. So we have a brand new Armed and Gelatinous that's just waiting for our reopening so that we can have a party for it.
I was just talking to Rob and Anthony about that probably 2 days ago.
Yeah. It's such a shame.
The party is still going to happen one day.
Yeah, we'll do it eventually.
We better be there for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'll go through the DBA games. So we have Particle Mace, which has been around since 2013. It's one of our first cabinets. 4-player battle royale where you just are ships flying around attacking with your particles. We have Powerboat Italia 88 by Nick Santinello, which is a 4-player boat racing game. We have Slam City Oracles by Jane Friedhoff, which is a 2-player collaborative. It's kind of like Katamari, where you just smash as many things as you can with one giant button. Super fun. We have Video Freak, which was a collaboration with Alan Riley, who's a video artist, and that's got a bunch of analog video and audio effects built into it. So it's kind of less of a game and more of like an art piece, which is really fun. We have Nothing Good Can Come of This by Michael Consoli, which is a 1v1 duel, I would say. A gun drops from the ceiling and you have to shoot the other person before they shoot you.
The last tournament before COVID was amazing. So many people came out. It was a blast.
Yeah, they get really into it.
Great.
We have Volley Gone, also by Nick Santinello, which is kind of a game of volleyball using different polygon shapes. And, you know, depending on your physics, they deflect in different ways. We have Witch Ball by S.L. Clark, which is a racing volleyball game. The graphics are really, really good. It's got this like kind of gothic feel to it. We've got, let me think, Centenntable by Amanda Hudgens from Kentucky, which was a game that we built at Magfest this past year. It's a fighting game, but each player has 50 buttons, and the moves are all randomized each round. So you kind of have to figure out what all the buttons do while you're playing it.
Not part of DBA collection, but we have a line wobbler. And a huge shout out to Robin Baumgarten. One thing we didn't mention about our opening is we actually did a Kickstarter, and Robin really helped make that Kickstarter, with letting us auction off 2 or 3 line wobblers that went.
Oh yeah,
it's an amazing game. I now I get it.
KungFu Kickball by Jonah Wallerstein, which is a crowd favorite. It's kickball with ninjas. You have to kick the ball into the goal. Dreambox, which was an arcade cabinet we made for this queer dance club called the Dream House. We basically got 8 LGBTQ game developers in New York to make games for this cabinet. So there's games by Robert Yang, by Ayla Myers. There's a bunch of great stuff in that cabinet.
Multi-cab.
Dobotone by Video Gamo, the guys out of Buenos Aires, which is the 4-player party console. Let me think. Am I missing anything?
A Place to Bury Strangers.
Oh my god, we have a custom pinball machine that I constantly work on, and I would be remiss to not mention it. Yeah, it was themed around A Place to Bury Strangers, which were my roommates back at Death by Audio. So
it really was a joke where Mark was like, I'm going to make a pinball machine for you one day, and it's going to have a fog machine and lasers and strobes. And he did all of it.
I just was in there today.
But we have to send you a video. I think we have one where somebody was playing it, and we're like, oh my gosh, you won. And they got so scared when the fog machine came on because you think it's broken, but we're like, congratulations.
They think they started something on fire.
Yeah, this machine is not on fire.
Halloween costume, Pico 8.
Oh yeah, we made a little Pico 8 cab that I actually wore on my back for Halloween. And we've been using it as a rotating gallery for Pico 8 games. It's a little tiny, cute game.
Cute game.
And then we've got a couple pop-ups that we install from time to time. We have a game called Circumnavigators by Andy Wallace and Juno Moro, which is like kind of a circular LED game that you have to walk around in a circle to play.
Good exercise.
Yeah, it was prototyped on a trash can, and then we made an actual installation out of it.
So good. Football Forever.
And Football Forever, which is one of our tables in the bar now, which is a 2v2 space soccer game.
Michael Kahane
and Anthony Merfat.
And Kyle.
Yeah, Kyle Magox, which I'm going to be on for the building interview because he's a really great fabricator. And yeah, I'm sure he can talk more about
Super
wood.
supporter, been really helpful with all our game development and renovations.
So yeah, that's everything off the top of my head that I think we have. But it changes. It changes pretty frequently depending on, what people want to install.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you nailed it. Like, I'm going through everything here, and I think the only one you didn't talk about was Foiled. You mentioned it, but didn't kind of say what it is.
Yeah, so Foiled is 1v1 fencing game, which has a lot of really great moves. Like, the sword fighting is really awesome. And once you kill your opponent, you have to take, I guess, their soul back to your goal to get a point. But that game was by Gabe Cazillo and Charles Pratt, and they are, I think, thinking about getting those cabinets made. I don't know if officially it's available just yet. So it was exciting to get one.
Looks like a lot of fun.
Gotcha. So you said earlier that you do all these pop-ups. Like, if you could describe what the pop-ups are, like what they're all about, and what is your favorite pop-up you've ever done?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll kind of divide this. So Wonderville, now that we have a space, we've kind of stopped doing pop-ups. But prior to this, when DBA Arcade was on the road, we did a lot of pop-ups. And some of the highlights were Elsewhere, which is a huge concert venue in Brooklyn. They have this little art gallery sky bridge that's kind of lofted above the entranceway. And we had all of our arcades up there. And we did a couple events in their sky bridge, and that was a lot of fun.
You're so supportive.
The Dream House was amazing. That was the place where we made the Dream Box for, and they no longer exist because the Dream Box would live there if they did. But it was like an old quinceañera venue, like a banquet hall. There's a huge chandelier. There were these ornate balconies and things, and then I guess they just rented it out to these artists who turned it into this kind of late night party house. So when we had our event, it started at 11 p.m. and I think I left at 7 in the morning, and it was early. The party was still going.
Yeah, I didn't last that long.
But that was such a cool space, and it's unfortunate that they couldn't hang on to it.
Before we had Wonderville, we did a pop-up at bar cafe called Flowers for All Occasions. It's actually owned by the previous owners of our space. And I still remember coming in and Mark and Eric, the previous owner, scheming about needing a space and how like this was a pop-up, but you really need your own space. It's like reflective conversation.
Yeah.
They end up being the ones that sell you the space.
Yeah. They knew.
That's pretty cool. I mean, a lot of those sound like a ton of fun. I know you mentioned something earlier, Mark. Magfest. What is Magfest?
So Magfest is an annual festival that happens in National Harbor, Maryland every year in January. And we have been attending for about 6 years. Basically,
Wow.
when we first started going, they had a deal where it was like, if you bring an arcade cabinet, you get a free badge. And then we brought 5 arcade cabinets, so we got 5 badges. And then we were incorporated in part of the indie arcade, or the indie video game showcase, MIVS, for a couple of years. And then they spun us off into our own department called the Indie Arcade, which basically encompassed anyone who was building weird, indie video game interfaces. And it got so big, I last year I had to step down as the organizer because it was just getting to be too much. So
In a good way.
In a good way. It's really kind of assumed its own identity. And last year we had, I think, 20 submissions from across the country. There's guys that drive from Colorado to showcase there. Last year there were games using rocking horses. Somebody had like a Nerf gun that you fired at the screen. Amanda Hudgens, who made Centenntable, made a game out of a bed. So you would just like lay in bed and look at LEDs. It's really, really this crazy time. It never closes. So it's 72 hours straight. And you can go to the arcade at any point. So, at any hour of the day, there is stuff going on. There's people who stay up all night. There's people who wake up really early. It's just this wild experience. And today they just announced that it's going to be completely virtual this year, which is really sad because I know they only do this a few events a year and they're all these huge conferences. So there's going to be an online fundraiser coming up on the 13th, and we're going to try and help with their kind of telethon that they're doing. So we won't be traveling to National Harbor this year, which is a shame, but probably for the best.
But you'll be helping out virtually. Death by Audio Arcades.
I think we'll probably be involved in some capacity in the virtual event.
Well, I mean, that sounds really cool. And I mean, it's unfortunate the way it has to go this year, but I'm sure it'll bounce back again next year.
Yeah.
So my last question for you guys here, which I guess I maybe should have asked closer to the beginning, but what is it that got you guys into video games? I'm always interested in the roots of where someone's passion for the area started.
I should go first. Yours is so long.
Go ahead.
So for me, I like that Mark told you about his making of his first cabinet and that we've been together that long that I got to see this interest grow. And Mark and I got to attend so many amazing events held by Baby Castles. And they really were one of the pioneers in New York City. They had these events that were just so interactive and so much fun. And so Mark and I met through the music scene in Brooklyn, the DIY, somewhat underground music world. And to see the gaming community fit so well into a similar, you can do this yourself, you can host events, I think really opened my eyes up to what I previously thought was video games were simply just a lone event, lone activity, potentially at home. That it's actually like really interactive and really fun and really engaging. And now at the bar, not only do I love playing Black Emperor, but I also love watching other people play Black Emperor. And, it's unique. It's one of our only single player games, but it's so much fun. It's so great to see people interact with it and play. So that was part of it for me. And the other part being that we are a bar, which has made it possible for us to financially stay open, is just I regret saying, as I'm about to say, I regret the legal and fun challenge that is, that I like wanted to rise to that occasion, and like we can do it too. And it's been challenging, but it's also really been rewarding. It really has been a lot of great bringing people together.
Yeah. Andrew Cuomo, if you're listening,
yeah,
it's been tough.
yeah, open our curfew up, please.
Yeah, so I guess I grew up like any 90s kid. Like I had a Super Nintendo, I had an N64, like I did all of that, and then I kind of missed the early 2000s video game scene. Like I skipped the GameCube and the Wii and all of the Xbox, PlayStation stuff. And I played drums in bands, and that was like what I did for a while. And I think I got back into video games when I started seeing events in public spaces, right? Like I played a little bit of Halo, and it was very much like, you know, everybody get together on a couch in an apartment. It was very much like not a public space thing. I guess you didn't see a lot of games in bars, right? That kind of developed later. But then I guess the combination of Baby Castles and seeing like places like Barcade and all of these new arcade bars pop up kind of fueled all of these ideas, where it was like, what if we had an arcade bar, but it was all exclusively these crazy indie games, sort of what these DIY music venues are doing, but we're doing it for games. And the network and the community are just so amazing, you know, like we're meeting people that have traveled from around the country to like come to Wonderville and see the games there. And it's super heartwarming. And it's like, you know, I try to tell people it's not that hard to just have an event. I guess don't do it now because we're still, you know, there's still a virus, but once it's safe to do so, you know, all we were doing was just throwing parties and setting up a bunch of video games, you know, and we would tell people like, bring your laptop and a screen and some controllers and we'll put them on a table. And that's kind of how this all started, right? Even before there were a lot of arcades, it was just like, it's a party with video games, and anyone can do that, right? You don't have to know how to build arcade cabinets. But I think we're starting to see it pop up in different cities, and I think that's really encouraging.
Yeah, I know there's a lot going on in the Midwest. I mean, Killer Queen started in the Chicago area. Us Galactic Battlegrounds is Minnesota. We've got Cosmotrons out in Milwaukee. What is it? Switch and Shoot is out in Iowa. Deathball is in Iowa. Like, it's kind of cool to see that there's a little Midwest scene, and then all these games that I had no idea about on the East Coast. You guys have all of
them. Yeah, I mean, I guess we're responsible for a lot of them. But, you know, it was just, I don't know, I knew how to make a box out of wood, and from that, it's not that much more to make an arcade cabinet.
Right, just a couple computer components. It's really, there's not that much in there nowadays.
Yeah, mostly empty.
And now it's remote, but when we were doing the in-person playtest nights on Wednesdays, and so many times you'd meet people that were coming and they're like, I'm just learning, I want to get started. How do I get started with games? And we, you know, everyone in that community, like Mark said, is like been so amazing and so supportive, but they're also like really happy to share their knowledge and like help people expand and learn. So I think we'll see even more games on the East Coast.
Yeah, hopefully all over.
Yeah, I mean, the community is the coolest part. That's always my favorite part of any kind of convention or anything we go to. So before I wrap everything up here, I want you guys to shout out all your social media so that people know where to find you.
Yeah, so we are on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, all Wonderville NYC. So if you go to any of those, Wonderville NYC is the place. We've been streaming a lot, especially now during COVID. We have a lot of events on our Discord. If you go to wonderville.nyc, that's our website. If you go to wonderville.nyc/Discord, you can join our Discord server, where we now host our playtest night, and we've been doing our own dev interviews every 2 weeks. So that's been really exciting. We've been streaming DJs out of our backyard. So that's happening most weekends.
We want to support some DJs.
Yeah, we're usually post their Venmo, so
Yeah.
it's nice for the DJs to get a little love. And then we also work with this organization called With Friends, and they have a membership program. So if you feel like supporting us, the memberships are split between us and DBA Arcade. So if you become a member, that helps fund us and make new arcade cabinets happen.
Yeah, with Friends is a really cool site. I think before we focused more on the ticketing events that they provide, like instead of Eventbrite, but they really do foster relationships and community. Like Mark said, we're able to keep our relationship with Death by Audio Arcade and Wonderville. So yeah, if you haven't seen them, you should check out With Friends.
Yeah, I think that's everything.
I mean, we could do shout out for like another half hour. There's so many people and organizations, like Chris Hernandez from Death by Audio Arcade is our like interior designer, amazing graphics designer. I'm constantly giving thanks because really it's just Mark and I. So he has played the tiebreaker numerous times.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I really appreciate you guys coming on. Thank you, Mark and Stephanie.
Thank you.
This will happen again. I'm definitely going to have to talk to you guys again about this post everything, and I would really like to come out to Wonderville to see all these games. But until